Hi folks, in the small village of Villers-Bretonneux in northern France, there's a schoolyard with a sign overlooking it with the words, "Do not forget Australia." It's to remind everyone of the more than 2,400 Australian diggers who lost their lives on the battlefield as our soldiers recaptured the town from German control in the dying days of World War I. I've been there several times. It is a beautiful place. The people revere any Australian who comes to visit. It's a show of how our history is permanently woven into theirs. So despite any diplomatic blip that comes along the way, all will be okay in the end. But right now, it's not. We've hit a rocky patch in the relationship. We ditched the French to form a security pact with the US and the UK to acquire nuclear-powered submarines as the threat from China ratchets up, meaning we no longer want the conventional subs that we'd originally ordered. Paris is fuming, despite already significant economic kickbacks. It says trust has been broken because the secret pact did not involve President Emmanuel Macron.
This is a contract that was going to cost us about 5% of GDP or thereabouts, It's a massive contract, 3 times bigger than our Joint Strike Fighter project. So, of course, Australia will need to take and look very closely at the pathway that we're taking. And this is why we had exit ramps and gateways built into this contract to allow us to do these things. So it's understandable that, France is disappointed and Naval Group is disappointed, but we haven't done anything other than what we're contractually entitled to do under the terms of a commercial arrangement. And, that disappointment is understandable, but to accuse us of anything else, such as, bad faith, I think is not correct.
Casting our shared history aside, this is about business and evolving strategic interests. Firstly, the French company Naval Group, majority owned by the government, stuffed up. The contract for 12 conventional subs had ballooned from $50 to $90 billion in a few short years, not to mention long delays in delivering the final product. So why wouldn't a buyer move on to something else? That's Business 101. Also, the threat from China is changing fast, and the American offer for the subs, access to its nuclear technology, weaponry, and a submarine lease in the meantime suited what Australia need. It also received bipartisan support here. But as analyst Bruno Tertre told me this week, it's Washington that Paris is most upset with.
Most of the French attention is focused on Washington. Not that the subcontract did not matter, not at all the case, but really, I guess that most of the anger and bitterness and resentment is directed at least as much as towards Washington than towards Canberra. Regarding the French-Australian relations, there is now the feeling of having been, quote, lied to, unquote. And I know that Prime Minister Morrison has defended his position, and this has been reported in the French press. Actually, we gave the French the warning sign, etc. And the French interpretation, to say the least, is very different. So a lot of anger and bitterness also directed at Canberra.
France does have a point in that Australia could have just ordered nuclear subs in the first place. And now our submarine program has been pushed back even further. Perhaps it could have been handled better diplomatically, but by making France aware of what Australia was doing, the cat would have come right out of the bag.
The negotiations and the discussions that were taking place were done at a very, very high level, and secrecy and making sure that only those who needed to know knew what was going on was a hallmark of getting the outcome that was in our sovereign national interests. And when you're pursuing an outcome like this, sometimes keeping it very tight and making sure that it remains at that top secret level is absolutely vital, because as you know, we're not only dealing with nuclear submarines, but we're dealing with an agreement or a partnership which will enable us to get access to the latest cyber technology, the latest AI, the latest missiles.
France recalled its ambassadors from Canberra and Washington and may well now look to suspend talks on a free trade deal with Australia. But that's counterproductive, as France would stand to lose more. Emmanuel Macron has an election next year and the polls are tight, so pushing back against the US plays well to voters. As for our relationship, well, it could take years to mend, but it will mend in time. We go back too far.